Just like a car without an engine isn't going to run, if your memoir is missing one of these components, or if you're using them in the wrong way, your memoir won't work. The great thing about understanding how these two components work in your memoir is that you can write a book in a fraction of the time because you don't waste years throwing out pages that aren't working. In this video, I'm going to talk about the two components you need to write a good memoir, how to use each of these components in the right way, and how to write a book the fastest way possible by understanding how these two components work together to create plot. The first thing you should know is that every novel and every memoir in existence already has these two components. That is what makes the plot work. This is true whether you're talking about The Vegetarian, written by Han Kang, the Nobel Prize winner in literature in 2004. It's true whether you're talking about A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. It's true whether you're talking about memoir. Here are the pages of Educated, the huge New York Times best-selling memoir. You'll notice that all of these have two different components. But most people, when they start to write their memoir, mix these components up, and they wind up with writing that looks something like this. These are samples from 3 students I worked with, and this is what they turned in when we first started working together. So these two excerpts look very different than the published books I showed you. In the published books, we have chunks of blue, chunks of orange. In these student samples, there's a lot of mixing up of these two colors. There's a lot of mixing up of these two components. So what are these two components? Well, the first one is a scene. Now, I know what you're thinking. Whew, a scene. I know what a scene is. I know how to write a good scene. Hold your horses, Kimosabi. Not so fast. I've worked with more than 500 writers over the past 17 years. And in my experience, most of them thought they knew what a scene was, but actually didn't. I'm a Penguin Random House author, and for many years, I thought I knew what a scene was too, but I really didn't. Does a scene need dialogue? Nope. Does a scene need description? Nope. Let me help you understand what a scene actually is, and how to spot one in a novel or a memoir. The first thing you need to know is that a scene uses time in a very specific way. You'll notice when you've come across a scene in a novel or a memoir, because all of a sudden we are there in a specific moment in time, living through what the main character or the narrator is experiencing. See if you can spot where the scene begins in the following fairy tale. Once upon a time, in a land far away, lived a girl named Cinderella, who was very, very sad. Every day, she had to do the chores that her evil stepmother assigned to her. She spent hours cleaning the fireplace, hoping that her cruel stepsisters wouldn't come in and mock her. Her life went on like this for years, work and drudgery and insults and loneliness, until one day there was a knock on the door. No one else was home, so Cinderella went to open it. A royal messenger stood in the doorway and handed Cinderella a scroll. Cinderella wondered if she should open it. She wasn't the lady of the house. Still, this was a message from the king, which meant it was information she definitely needed to know. So, where does the scene start? Did you spot it? It starts with, one day there was a knock at the door. So prior to this, the writing uses time in a general way. Let me give you some examples. Once upon a time, every day she had to do the chores. Her life went on like this for years. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not scene writing. And then we get to a specific point in time in this text. One day. That is the beginning of the scene. You can always spot the beginning of a scene because the use of time becomes specific. It happens at a single point in time, not an extended period of time. In fact, a scene will often have a time anchor indicating that the scene has started. Something like, that Thursday, 3 hours later, one summer's evening, that day at 3 p.m., Friday afternoon, These are all time anchors. They all indicate a specific point in time. Now compare that with this. Every Thursday. That's not a time anchor. That's not a specific point in time. One Thursday is a time anchor. Every Thursday is not. Over the course of the summer is not a time anchor. One day that summer is. It's a specific point in time. So, scenes use time in a very specific way. You are at a particular point in time, not an extended period of time. One more thing you need to know about a scene. Something must happen. It doesn't matter if you're writing a novel or a memoir. Something must always happen in your scene. So why? Well, that's the very reason that scenes exist. They move the plot forward. And in order to move the plot forward, something must happen. In every scene ever written, in any novel or memoir, something happens. So when you give your reader a scene in which nothing happens, they get the sense that something is just off. Because a scene without something happening is denying the very thing that gives a scene a reason to exist. It would be a little bit like filling a car radiator with grape juice. A radiator needs water to function, but if you fill it up with grape juice, it's not going to do what it was designed to do. It's going to give you problems. So if you fill your scene with the wrong information, your scene is not going to do what it was designed to do. It's going to give your reader problems. A scene exists to move your plot forward, and in order to do this, something must happen in your scene. A radiator needs water to cool down your car's engine. A scene needs for something to happen in order to create plot. Something must happen in your scene. This is so true that I want you to feel what happens when I say the following statement to you. Last Thursday, I went to Target. If I say that to you, what would your question back to me be? Probably, oh, what happened at Target? What happened? Whenever you give someone that time anchor, last Thursday, you were creating the expectation that something will happen. The same thing is true in your scene. A scene takes place at a specific point in time, and something must happen. That is the definition of a scene. We'll get into the other component that your memoir needs in just a second. Before I do, be sure to sign up for my free class, 7 Steps to Structure. You'll find a link in the description below this video. Okay, so what about your other component? Your other component is a transition. Again, you might think you know what a transition is, but stay tuned. I'm probably going to change your mind. Transitions work much like the narrator of the story. In the Cinderella example I gave you earlier, the transition writing was at the beginning, what led up to the scene. So why are transitions important? Transitions are actually doing the heavy lifting of turning your scenes into a story. This becomes really important in memoir writing, when one scene often doesn't really have anything to do with the scene that follows it. So the transition exists to let your reader know what the scene they just read has to do with the scene they are about to read. The transition goes in the middle. In memoir, you often have a collection of scenes about your life. But just reading about a bunch of things that some random stranger did just isn't interesting to a reader. What do they want? They want a story. Transitions take disconnected events, disconnected scenes, and transform them into a story. Remember, you are going to find transition writing in every memoir, every novel in existence. What transition writing does is connect your scenes, letting your reader know what each of your scenes has in common. So let me simplify it this way. Scenes recount events, transitions make a point. But it's really easy to get transition writing wrong. My book, The Memoir Engineering System, gives you detailed examples of how to use transitions in the right way in your memoir. Or you can watch this video next to learn more about how transitions work to take your disconnected scenes and turn them into a story.